It's time for Murder Moose! Hey everybody, welcome to Murder Moose, part of the Slash and Cast podcast network. I am Rod, and with me, I think, is Josh. I can't see him, but he's here, I think.
What? Hello?
Josh?
Hello?
You're gonna mess with me now after everything we've been doing?
What do you mean?
No, I'm just kidding. Okay. And we are blessed to be joined with some of our podcast network compatriots, the So Horrified podcast. Matt and Sadie, welcome you two.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I reached out to you guys back in, I think it was like November, and I was like, just telling you how much I love the concept of your podcast and talking about shitty movies. And then I asked if you guys had seen what we're talking about today. And you guys said you had recorded an episode and you had audio issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh shit, we have to do this. We have to have them on because I've been obsessed with this movie and I wanted to talk about it on a podcast for like over a year. It's been a really long time.
Yes.
So yeah, so Josh, this is the first time he'd seen the movie and he was like, you didn't tell me that I can't talk long. I got a poo line was the first line in the movie, but
that's all I said too. Well, no, actually, I said it's a lot better than what did I say? It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in it. It's just not the greatest movie. So I feel like he had this grand idea in his head, and it was all just like weird linear ideas that didn't tie together whatsoever, and it was so heavy-handed and insensitive in all the wrong ways. But
insensitive to like everybody.
Yeah, but other than that, the ideas it had were actually pretty good, and like some of the stuff, like it's definitely quotable, and that's what all bad movies should be. But
right.
But I found myself liking it on so many different levels, though. And I was like, but it's not because it's bad. It's like, this is actually not that bad right now. It's just everything about him is just terribly, terribly wrong and shouldn't have happened ever.
Right.
Yeah, in more capable, non-Fred Durst hands, it probably could have been better.
Right.
And now I want to quote Tropic Thunder, but it's 2021. We're not allowed to quote Tropic Thunder anymore, so... But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the Robert Downey Jr. line from that movie keeps going in your head when you watch this.
The entire time. I'm like, dude.
You're like...
you can't. You never go full.
Okay.
You never go full.
Before we dive into this, I want to talk to you guys real quick and just get... you guys have been podcasting, you said, coming up on a year. And how did you guys decide you wanted to do this together? And how did you come up with such a cool concept? As to review movies that are terrible, but you enjoy the crap out of terrible movies.
Well, it kind of started a little bit as the bane of our relationship. Like, as she would watch movies, I would kind of sit over her shoulder and just make fun of them, whether they were good or not. And, you know, she enjoyed it when they were actually bad, but if it was something she liked, she was not so much on board with it.
I don't feel those sentences should be past tense because this is still a current thing. Like, he can come in and I'll be watching something and I will tell him, we like this movie, we're not going to make fun of it. Or I'll say, you know, we don't like all of these people. You can make fun of those people all you want, but I like this character, so they're off limits.
Yeah. So the show kind of became our outlet to do that in a safe space.
Right. If it's really bad, I'll make fun of it too, and we'll enjoy laughing and making fun of it together. But yes, when it was, Matt had been talking about us doing a podcast for a long time, and finally he was like, "Oh, this should be our podcast." I was like, "Okay, I could get on board with that."
I really appreciate. I told you guys I was listening to one of your episodes today, and you started talking about the Twilight movies, and I'm just sitting there going, oh God, because my wife watched all those and read the books, and I'm just like,
I've seen all the movies.
And those are like the perfect bad movies that like a lot of people do really like. And,
yeah. I've seen all the movies and read all the books, but I have not liked any of the movies or any of the books.
I'm proud to say I have watched or read none of them.
They're just popcorn flicks. I understand the audience, and it's the exact same audience that loves like the Hunger Games and the Maze Runner and all those like franchises.
I disagree
in that, like,
with that
group
because I love the Hunger Games, but hated Twilight.
Okay. Well, no, but I mean, it's the same demo.
Same target audience. It's the same target audience.
Very,
that doesn't
mean
everyone in the demo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just made me laugh because that last Twilight movie pulled one of those shenanigans that actually makes me upset, where they give you 20 minutes of battle and then they go, "Oh no, wait, that was just a joke. We're kidding.
Yeah,
that was a vision."
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, I sneezed.
Yeah. It's infuriating.
I just hate when movie directors waste your time. And we've talked about bad movies, and there's been bad movies that don't know what they are. I mean, we talked about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a bad movie, but it embraces being a bad movie, and
well, it's
that's
because
something
of budget constraints and the fact that they are just dudes of that age and like don't have a budget whatsoever. So it's like, what are we going to do? What can we do? And they did it and had so much fun doing it. You can tell. So that's what you do.
Another thing you guys do that I really love is your wrong answers only, which is, I think, the first time I've ever seen it used in a podcast setting of like, I was listening to you guys talk about Blood Rain on it, the last one you did, and I was just laughing because it's like, these movie posters are so bad that it is.
Dude.
I mean,
I want to. Well, if I have time, you know that thing that I tweeted the other day, that like alternate poster. I would love to do that if I have time with the weekly like Murder Moose
movies.
Yeah, and do like an alternate poster and see if we can get, because like the whole Twitter game as well as like the podcast thing and all that stuff. Like we're all helping each other. Like this is especially in the like horror community. The smaller movies need all the help they can get, and I didn't realize that when I first started YouTube and stuff. And like I have this unique opportunity with Calgary Underground Film Festival, bringing such cool movies into my city like day one. Like they just finished the movie and then it was in Calgary, and I didn't realize that. So I was like getting to review these movies like day one before they had distribution and stuff. So that's when those movies really help or need the help as well. So like it's mutually beneficial for like your Twitter and your channels and stuff to get your hands on those movies as well. So if I can do those posters and get more buzz on a movie that hasn't started out yet either, like I just all for the community, right? The horror community, man.
I mean, a cool poster can go a long way with a movie, right?
Yeah.
And it's I got to go back because one of your guys' episodes that I have tagged and haven't gotten a chance to listen to yet is the Santa Jaws episode. So because I had seen that movie before I saw you.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they did it. You guys did an episode about that, right?
Yes, we did just recently.
I'm very like, oh god, like Amazon doesn't have trailers for it though, so I was like, they don't even prepare you for the shit show that is the stuff that is on this channel. So okay, so you guys, you guys your story and how you do things. I think it's really cool because it's just, I think it's Josh and I have both had the experience where we often watch our the movies we're talking about with our wives, and Josh will like get dirty looks for. I think it was because of Thanksgiving. I think she wanted to murder him for me having us watch it.
No, because like she knows like I'm gonna watch shit like that because like I make B movies, right? Like not like that, but like she understands that those are the types of movies that we're gonna consume in this house as well. She's like, as much as I say she hates horror, she's totally down to like check it out, but she just gets overly scared of like the ghosts and like that type of horror and stuff. She just can't handle it.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Ghosts do you guys have any
limits or things you don't want to do in like horror movies? Is there something one of you guys doesn't like you have a no ground? Like, not saying it's clown. It's like something like, oh, I'm terrified of clowns, so we're not watching it or anything, or killer clown type movies. Do you guys have anything like that?
I mean, I am afraid of clowns.
Oh, I didn't nail that on the head, but
no, not. I mean, the only thing that is like, you know, we have our limit as far as like what's considered a bad movie of what qualifies, and we try not to watch movies that are like the Thanksgiving, because we talked about that one at Thanksgiving about doing it, but it's too aware of itself of like we're a bad movie and we're leaning into that, and so we try not to do those. We like try to go for the ones that are trying to be good movies and just aren't.
That's completely. Yeah.
Then it's that's a completely different ball game, because it's a
movie. That's what we
like.
Yeah, it feels bad making fun of people that were already making fun of themselves.
Right. Well, and like those are the kinds of movie I still just enjoy watching those because I think it's hilarious. But you know, we don't go into those on the show so much.
Yeah, they don't get the spotlight. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. We haven't really crossed one yet that's like, we won't do it. We've done some crazy movies.
Yeah.
Some weird things that I did not think would come up in movies. Like Bigfoot rape scenes.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was going to be a thing. Like,
were you guys the elves episode I said I was listening to, you were talking about elf rape scenes.
Right.
I'm like, what? With Nazis? There are Nazis involved, and I'm just like, what is?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely proud of the fact that several of our movies have had like mythical creatures raping women.
Yeah, there was like a giant slug rape one, and we're just like, what is happening?
I mean, you think about it, Evil Dead has one of the most famous the tree rape scene, which is like one of those things where you're like, and that was, shot in 1978 or whatever. So it was
Evil Dead is still one of the best.
Yeah. It's one of those movies you just like, it has that crazy shit. And I think often with that type of stuff, people are just trying to do something shocking to get attention.
Right.
And that's the kind of stuff that will do it. So,
I mean, speaking of the movie we watched with the big slug scene, that's like the only thing that movie's known for. Galaxy of Terror it's known for having a giant slug rape scene.
It's that's a thing that in filmmaking it can be done. Mm-hmm. It's not. It has to be done right, but even then, it's like, I mean, you think about it, right? Like, Last House on the Left and I Spit on Your Grave are still two of the most iconic horror movies of all time, right?
Right.
And because of their content, including really like crazy rapes that like drove the thing, but that also like made those movies targets for critics, especially back in the day. So
they were like banned and stuff.
And so, and that's a lot. I mean, I saw Cece from Scream Queens talking about on Twitter watching Cannibal Holocaust because I think it's on Shudder now, and I'm like, I refuse to watch that movie because of the animal killing. So
I told you my story about going to see that, right? Like that.
Yeah, where you didn't know about the animal killing.
Like, that's just that's a terrible accident, man. That's a terrible accident.
Yeah.
But the crowd is the weirdest part, man, because like the crowd, like it was sold out because they bring it in special, and it was like a 35 mil of it and everything. But the crowd is so into it that movie, and I'm like,
it's like a Rocky Horror thing.
Yeah, but
right.
They're like, here it comes. I'm like, please no.
Which is what The Room has turned into, right? Also, what's your guys' opinion on The Room? Are you fans?
So I haven't actually seen the real movie except for the clips that they show at the end of the James Franco one.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that, and that was, to be honest, enough for me. But what I've seen, I thought was hilariously wonderful.
Well, and we actually talked about that a little bit on the episode that we just did.
Right.
Because we were watching a Uwe Boll, however you pronounce it. But we were comparing that to The Room, and you can tell in The Room that Tommy Wiseau like really loved it, and he was trying to do a good job and just didn't. Whereas in the movie we just watched, Blood Rain, like it seemed like they weren't even trying.
And now that we know more about Uwe Boll, is that he wasn't trying. He just cared about making money on movies that don't do well. Yeah. So
it was a tax. There's a giant. There's a giant
it's the tax thing. Yeah, exactly. That's what we talked. I talked about in Sadie's rabbit hole was because we talked about it with Jeff Ryan, who was on, and then I was like, I'm interested in this because that was the entire plot of Mel Brooks's The Producers. So I have to know if this is real. And it was. That's what it was. Is he was doing The Producers thing. And and so
crazy.
Yeah.
Just give me the money. I'll make a movie
just...
that's not intentionally bad for cheap. Fuck.
Right.
And now I asked about The Room because I feel like The Room is one of the closest movies I've ever seen to what we're talking about today. We're talking about The Fanatic. Now, The Fanatic is a movie that came out in 2019, directed by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit fame, which actually comes in. Oh my god! Is one of the scenes of this
father-son bonding time.
Oh my god! I literally almost vomited. I was just like,
when they said the phrase, "Oh, you're down with the biscuit."
What?
I'm like, oh no one does that.
Oh my god.
Fred, no, Fred, no. Like,
he was directing that from the back seat. No, get into it more.
Yeah.
I'm fucking Fred Durst.
Right. He was.
You're listening to Fred Durst. Get into it. Get into it more. You know that's his direction.
Exactly.
Tell him you want to smash some bullshit or whatever you want to do with that. And oh my god, yeah, it is one of those. I think Josh is right in a lot of the stuff with this movie. I think Fred Durst was trying, and because there is a lot of stuff in this movie that's like interesting and different that you're like, well, I haven't seen anything like that, but
the relationships are freaking paper thin, and like nothing that needs explaining is explained at all, and I'm still such a fan of Devon Sawa, and I don't see him enough. And I like seeing him. I love
Devon Sawa.
Like, he's awesome in horror, just in general. I loved him in absolutely everything he was.
Like, I loved him in Casper and Now and Then. So, you know.
Everything.
I always forget. He doesn't look anything like the kid in Casper anymore. No. Like, he hasn't in a long time. And that movie is, if you've never seen it, it is like before your time. Movie is cute as fuck. It is really
it's adorable. I love that movie.
It's got a lot of sad shit in it, but
Casper? Oh, it's been on like repeat in my house. Like my daughter's obsessed with like old movies. She's has Dr. Dolittle on repeat right now. Just all the older movies. Yeah, like the older one.
Not the shit show that was Robert Downey Jr. You guys could talk about that. That would be a good So Horrified movie to talk about, that Robert Downey Jr. Dr. Dolittle movie. Where he's like pulling shit out of a dragon's ass, I guess.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a disaster. So it's funny. I told you guys I've watched this movie 4 times. I watched it last night, and then I'm like, I was trying to think about how I was going to talk about it on the podcast, and I'm like, this movie's sequencing is literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen, where how scenes connect to each other.
Right.
And so I threw it on at then my workday, and I was just like I would put a line down, like I would write 3 or 4 words, and then just kind of connecting things. And I have like 67 lines of stuff in a Word Notepad++ document, just trying to fit this shit show of a movie together. Right. So this movie, they called it's labeled as a thriller horror, I think is what they call it.
Yeah.
I was not thrilled.
Yeah.
It's
No.
the Fanatic. A rabid film fan stalks his favorite action hero and destroys the star's life. Written and directed by Boom Wicka 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 Fred Durst. Woo!
Well, and apparently, like, loosely based off of an encounter that he had with a fan / stalker at some point in his life.
That is confusing because Matt and I both read different stories as to what that true encounter was. Because I read a story where it was Fred Durst was the fan going up to like some wrestler he liked who was a douchebag and just like wrote him off. But then you read that Moose was actually like a person that I don't know.
So I think the second one makes more sense because there's this weird amount of contempt in the movie for Moose's character coming from Hunter, which is the guy played by Devon Sawa. And you're sitting there going, I don't understand. There's like this unexplained anger coming at this guy.
Right.
Which from the very, very beginning. And you're like, why is this guy has a bad day, but like you could tell John Travolta walks up to him because he was at a signing and his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend shows up with their
ex-wife,
kid
I think,
and wants to dump him and run.
So she could go because she wants to go get fucked.
Yeah.
That's what she's like, I got a date tonight. I gotta go get some dick. And
he's like, fuck! Get out of my way, Moose!
Yeah. Also, the names in this movie are all terrible.
Yeah.
Moose and Hunter. And it's just Leia. Yeah, just Leia. Just Leia.
Slim.
Yeah.
Well,
it is not
I couldn't get a sense throughout the whole movie of who you're supposed to root for. Because
no one was likable.
Moose is crazy and kills people, and Hunter's a dick. And, Leah, I guess, is like the most normal person, but she's like a paparazzo, and I don't feel comfortable rooting for that.
That's the relationship that's paper thin and makes zero sense. Yeah. Like, she is abused beyond belief and then just keeps running back to him for no reason whatsoever. And there's no benefit other than, is she taking care of him? Because she's very naive and stupid with everything she tells him. So I don't think she's actually helping him.
At some point, I feel like she says something about that she's like helped him out financially, but I don't think she fully support. Like, I feel like she's helped him out, but she's not like his like a caretaker or anything,
Someone's got to tell him he's not going to make fucking money doing that shit on the street.
Well, and like being on Hollywood Boulevard, like taking pictures with tourists, usually you're dressed up as like a superhero or a character that somebody knows, not like an old-timey Keystone Cop that no one cares about.
I will say, to me, the most realistic part, though, was all the guys on Hollywood Boulevard being creeps and assholes, because that was absolutely my experience on Hollywood Boulevard, is that they were creepy as fuck and they were assholes.
You want to know, and I heard someone else say this, and I actually wouldn't be surprised. It doesn't seem like they actually had a filming permit for this movie.
No.
Did you notice that? It kind of seemed like they were just shooting on Hollywood Boulevard without because there are a lot of people on how long they're there, and you're like, could they just pulled this off and gotten away with it? And you're just going, I'm not sure. And you just go, okay.
Can you imagine just walking down the street, like going to work one day and then being like, did I just see John Travolta screaming at somebody how he wanted Freddy Krueger to come slice his head off?
Oh my God.
I don't know. I only lived in Hollywood for 2 years, and I promise that would not be the weirdest. Like, you would not blink at that kind of shit happening on Hollywood Boulevard. There's weird shit there.
One of those things you sit in one of those scenes where they're sitting there on the street, there's like the Todd dude who's like trying to get Moose to do shit for him 1 minute and then like screaming at him the next. He's sitting there, and there's a dude with a cereal box on his head, and it says Cereal Man across his face, like his head is a cereal box. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like it fits in with anything happening anywhere in here. And I'm just like, what? That's why I think someone assumed that might have been the case, and you start going, yeah, I could actually kind of see that, but it's like,
can we watch a movie about that guy instead?
Right?
Cereal Man. We're kind of avoiding it. there's no real like this movie is such a disaster that even us going scene by scene doesn't actually mean much in the whole long process.
Right.
Like I said, because it doesn't flow together. John Travolta, this is some of the worst acting I've ever seen anywhere in anything.
Absolutely.
$18 million budget. Holy shit!
Like
how much of that? How much of that was being paid to John Travolta?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
17 million of it.
But he was a producer.
I think the worst part about John Travolta's performance is how proud you could tell he was of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he thought that this was going to be his Oscar turn, and like it just was not.
Yeah, no.
It's. I've heard someone. I've watched reviews of this movie, and I've seen multiple people say it's. All it is, and Josh kind of implied to this at the beginning. It was the stereotypical what you would think of an autistic person. Like you would. He didn't do. It doesn't seem like he did any research.
No.
He gave himself.
No.
He gave himself the worst haircut I've ever seen in my entire life. That no one anywhere.
No, would you though?
I don't think you would have a family if you rocked that haircut, Josh, anymore. Your wife would leave you. He does. He just rocks the whole movie. Like that's his big thing. That he like just sits there and rocks.
Yeah.
Right. He does like the stimming, but I don't feel he understands what that is or why people do that.
No, his main acting choices seem to be rock back and forth, look confused, and like repeat yourself every once in a while.
Right, because like I definitely think they were trying to make it that he's an autistic man, but at the same time, it was like so past the mark, and like you said, like obvious that he had done zero research, or that whoever wrote this had done zero research to actually know anything about what autistic people are like.
It's honestly, and Josh referenced it earlier, the Tropic Thunder, the Ben Stiller character had acted like that in a movie, but it was them making fun of someone acting like that.
Right.
And then John Travolta went out there and did that in a real movie. And it was like he thought
pride.
It was good. And it doesn't.
It's like a
and they seemed very careful to never explicitly say that he's autistic or has Asperger's or anything like that. So I think that was their crutch to like, well, we can just make him do whatever we want because we never said specifically what he has.
Right. But at the same time, it's like, well, nothing that he's doing seems to match any mental illness out there in the real world. Like,
it's you sit there and you go, like, there's actually some decent actors around him. Like Leah isn't like, even though their relationships doesn't make much sense.
She's good.
She's pretty entertaining when she's on the screen, even though she makes no sense. Like her character is like Josh said, he's like, why is she here? Other than to do some weird fucking voiceover that you go, why is this voiceover included in this movie?
Right, yeah.
So bizarre. I'd forgotten about that until you mentioned it. And it was like, oh yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah. And it is at one point she literally goes, I have it written down because it's actually fucking insane. The line goes, at the very end of the movie, she goes, Moose didn't just cross the line, he fucking nuked it. And you go, but why is that necessary? You're watching this whatever dude go into this actor's house and do all this shit that's illegal, and you go, yeah, we gathered that from watching your shit show of a movie, but like, why are you throwing this voiceover in that doesn't help anything?
It's
and
just an exclamation mark.
Nobody in the audience was left thinking like he didn't cross the line.
Right.
It was obvious before you said it.
But yet at the same time, it almost feels like they, I guess, want you to feel sympathetic for Moose, it seems. But like nothing that he did deserves sympathy because he tied up a guy, kidnapped him, threatened his son, killed a maid.
None of the decisions that he makes make any sense. And then they'll do stuff like in the voiceover, she'll say stuff like, well, I don't know why he went back there. And it's like, well, that means the movie doesn't know either.
Right,
so why are we watching this?
Why are you narrating it? Because we don't know why. So, like, unless you're giving us new information, just shut the fuck up.
Let's talk about Moose murdering the maid on accident, because he didn't mean to do it.
Right.
But my primary problem with this is this woman was dead in the backyard for about 3 weeks before the cops found her. Like,
long, and no one noticed. No one noticed. And it's like, it was very upsetting to me.
Well, I think it was only actually like a day or two, but like it was the whole movie.
It was like 2 or 3 days, like in the timeline of the movie. The movie also doesn't tell time very well. Also, Fred Durst or someone had a very must have laughed his balls off, because John Travolta falls over in this movie a whole lot. He falls over 3 times in which seems like a pretty thing, for a drama thriller, horror movie. You go, this main character is just falling over multiple times, and you're like,
it's one of his mysterious symptoms.
Yeah, he's doing all this weird Dick Van Dyke shit in the middle of these very serious moments. He's like before he goes back to this 100 guy's house the last time, he's like just driving his moped down the street, and that, which is like another thing. They're like, oh yeah, this guy would have a moped. Yeah, we got to give him a moped.
Right.
And but how would he even I don't understand how he's affording anything, because he made like $1.
Right. No, he had a pretty decent apartment.
Yeah, like the place he lives, it's shitty, like it's not taken care of, but like it's a good size.
Right. Like that would be a pretty expensive rent for a place like that.
It would require an entire moped's gas tank to get there, because he would be so far away from LA that oh yeah, he lives 78 miles away to get, that's why he's got a moped, because he can't afford gas for a truck or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, John Travolta is really one of the weirdest actors of all time, because he started doing all these weird 70s things back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And you get like Saturday Night Fever and stuff like that, and then kind of killed his career in the 80s, right? Like his career died, which was why Quentin Tarantino brought him. Yeah, brought him back with Pulp Fiction and made him relevant again. And he still did. He did. This is actually not his. I mean, I think it might be his worst movie now, but he did Battlefield Earth before this, which is
right.
So bad.
Which is one of those movies I never even saw, because it's like notorious for how bad it is. But let's say there's a couple other things that are just weird general things with this movie that, for some reason, at certain points, they have these weird chalk drawings that pop up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's like their chapters or something. Like he was trying to.
I forgot about that too.
Tarantino
Yes.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. he throws. It's like, I don't know if Moose is supposed to be drawing them or what.
Yeah, it's never explained where the drawings come from.
Yeah, and at the very last one, Leah's an angel and Moose is just like a pirate, because he lost his hand and his
his eye,
his eyeball.
Right.
Yeah, and you're like, but why is Leah an angel? That's what I really don't understand. But
she takes care of him.
I guess that's
I guess
he's walking down the street bloody, and everyone's taking pictures of him, and she comes in and is like, "What's wrong with you?" and cares for him.
They have this weird thing in this movie where it happens more than once, where characters scream at each other, and then the next time the scene they're in, they're just like best friends again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
no consequences for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy that sits next to Todd, the guy who sits next to Moose the whole movie on Hollywood Boulevard, is like, he's robbing people by acting like he's a street performer, but he's got a second guy that comes in and robs people.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting there and he screams at the guy because the guy wants more money, because he's the one doing the illegal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so he's trying to hire Moose, and then Moose is like, I don't want to do that. And then the next scene they're together, they're bullying Moose together, and you're just like, but you guys just hated each other 7 minutes ago. And
yeah, well, and Moose and Leah have their big falling out and then just reconcile for no apparent reason.
Well, okay, let's just wonder something like this. If I went into Johnny Depp's house and took pictures of myself with him sleeping and kissing him on the forehead, wouldn't that get some kind of attention somewhere that like they're like
instantly?
What the fuck is with this?
Like instantly. If he was any celebrity, that would have went like semi-viral or at least like freaking Jersey Shore amount of viral. Like that would have gotten on freaking TMZ.
Yeah, like you'd think someone would notice that.
Yeah. So what happens in the movie, John Travolta's character Moose is sneaking into this guy's house because he's obsessed with him. And at one point he starts like taking pictures with him while he's sleeping because I think he's on Ambien. I'm not 100% sure.
He
they're
passes
kind
out
of like
every night, and he knows it, so he takes it.
Moose finds his medications, right? So and he's like, okay. I think he broke into his house. I recorded that like he's either on his house or in his property like 5 times in the movie.
I like how cheeky he is with it. Like just wakes up with his alarm and goes, "Oh, I guess I should get out of here." Like
right.
Well, holy shit.
Well, and the first time that he breaks in, he hides in the guy's closet just behind some clothes. And Devon Sawa looks directly into the closet from like 3 feet away and is just like, nope, nobody's in there. I'll go to bed.
Well, and like seriously, he has the worst security ever that Moose is in and out of that house so much.
Where's the cameras?
But Devon Sawa's not like alerted to it at any
doesn't have any kind of alarm system or anything.
Right.
And this is after he's caught him like in front of his house, and then his maid catches him on his property, and then like he catches him walking. He catches him walking away from his house after he slept wherever he slept in this guy's house overnight. And you're like, what the you know what? And I rewatching it today when the creepiest part about that whole sequence, he was under the fucking kid's bed at some point. And you're like, why are you under this kid's bed? Like,
I think I screamed that the entire time. He was like everything he's doing. I'm like, why? What purpose does this serve? Like what?
He's like going into his refrigerator and like eating some jelly or something like that and complaining it's not a sweet treat.
Oh, and he's like, you're a bad dad. You don't have ice cream. I forgot about that. Because that's true. If you don't have ice cream, then something is wrong with you.
I'm lactose. Well,
I did like identify with him when he was mad and he's like, it's not sweet. It's not a treat.
I definitely identify with that. Yeah.
He's got this reoccurring theme that he's addicted to strawberry ice cream and milkshakes specifically, because he at the very beginning of the movie he pops over the first time they throw him over the fence like a dead body. He's trying to meet Hunter at this premiere party or something like that, and he walks up to this bartender who I think that they just hired a bartender in some gig in Hollywood, and he's like, can I get you something? He's like, I want a strawberry milkshake. And he's like, I could get you a cocktail or a soda.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? And it's the first where like this guy has no social awareness, which is that reoccurring. Why is this guy? I mean, if you guys have not seen this movie and you're wondering, he's just stereotypical things that people say about autistic people. It's just the shit that John Travolta is doing throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, but it was written by Fred Durst, so I don't think it's gonna have like a light hand about it. Like what? Listen to his lyrics, man. Let's pull up some.
Yeah.
Let's dig into some Limp Bizkit.
The Smash Shit song that's just about smashing shit.
So are you trying to tell me that Moose did all of this for the nookie?
No, it was the cookie.
The cookie.
The sweet treat.
The sweet treat.
He didn't realize that the nookie cookie was a vagina, because I don't think Moose is very interested in any kind of sexual thing, because Leah's pretty attractive, unless maybe he's just really in love with Hunter. I mean, he keeps telling Hunter he loves him whenever he sees him, so maybe just Moose doesn't know how to make a move. So yeah, you guys are right though. Like that's one of the biggest problems this entire shit show of a movie is that there's no one to like cheer for.
Right.
That it's the really reoccurring thing. It's like in the last act of this movie is really where it goes off the fucking rails with that, because you're setting up this whole time that Moose is this crazy psycho stalker killer, even though he's not a killer. He's just, he doesn't know boundaries and gets his feelings hurt and whatever, but like he's obviously crossing lines. And then they have this Hunter character lose his mind worse than anyone in any movie ever has in the history of movies. And you go, but you're trying to make us feel sympathetic for this guy, and what?
Then he goes ape shit in front of his kid too. I'm just like,
yeah,
like,
right.
You're pretty much gonna run this guy over with your kid in the car. Like, you're just as crazy, man. Like, chill out.
And how did he know he was at his house? He could have been harassing other people on Hollywood, like in Hollywood.
Like,
that's what I was thinking too. I was like, he just sees him on the road. Now, I mean, granted, he's right that he's very, he definitely was there for him. But you don't know that, man. Like,
he could be a paper boy. I mean, come on,
right?
It's the writing for him specifically is very, very weird, and it just seems like there's like this. Also, has Fred Durst fucked his maid before? Because I think that might have happened also at some point. It's
right, which you know, I guess, right?
Yeah. You're sitting there going, Fred Durst, you have all these things, and then he gets on the phone when he's standing and staring at a Moose in the closet and not seeing him, and he's like, dude, I kissed the maid again. And you're like, why are you telling random? It must have been like his manager or best friend or something, but never explaining anything, right? So,
well, and they never explain any of Moose's thought process either. Like they chalk so much of it up to like, oh, well, he's got this disability, so of course he's going to do all this crazy shit. But like he's constantly ramping up for no reason.
Right.
His life has always been shit. He gets picked on all the time, but for some reason, like at this point, he decides to snap and start like breaking into houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only explanation they even kind of give during the entire movie for him like going that nuts is the security guard that tells him he has to stick up for himself. But you're sitting there and you're like, he's already murdered someone at this point, I think, and on accident, and I don't even know if he registered that he killed her, by the way, but
I think I feel like he did. Like, I hated that moment for many reasons, but I feel like he sees her and it looked, if I remember correctly, he seems like to freak out for a minute, but then he looks and is like, oh, open door, and like a goldfish just forgets that anything else had happened.
Well, and he's kills the maid, you know, he pushes her over and she hits her head and dies. And then for some reason, like this serious moment where he's taken his first life and is like contemplating what that is. And then they try to put a joke in there where he's like, oh, you're okay. Wake up. Why are you sleeping?
Well, that's a nosebleed. And then he farts.
It's like,
and
that's
then he walks
not
away.
the time for a joke.
Yeah. It's so like, they had this like kind of decent special effect where like he smashed her. He palms her face, like punches her with a palm strike or something like that. And she falls back and hits her head on this bird bath. And like her nose is kind of fucked up. And like the makeup
it looked good.
Yeah. For what they were doing. And he's like, oh yeah, that's a nosebleed. You need to put some. And you're like, but is that because you're not looking? He also does the other stereotypical autistic thing where he doesn't look at anyone. Like anytime he's having a conversation with someone, he doesn't look at him. He's looking at his phone.
But yeah, you don't have to have like a solid grasp on like social cues and norms to know when someone is alive or dead.
Right.
Yeah. But it's the simplifying of a character down to the point where you're going, this guy gets no kind of like, it's just that, oh, this guy's an idiot, even though they call him an idiot repeatedly throughout the movie.
So is he just an idiot? Like he's just dumb, or like what are we supposed to assume? I guess who knows? I guess that's
super
that's what we're doing. We're just going around like,
right.
Who knows? He's obviously.
I feel like you're definitely supposed to assume that he has some kind of like mental disability or develop. And like, I agree that I feel like they were trying to make it seem more autistic just because of the stimming of the rocking back and forth. But it was just so...
It was inconsistent, so it's hard to like pinpoint.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was so just like vague and, and I feel like Matt was saying that they do that so that they can write things off of like, oh yeah, he just killed someone and doesn't register it and seems to forget about it immediately and just walk away.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a, that's not a thing.
Well, that's just
well, you can
writing.
tell they had there was no interest in having like a positive portrayal of mental illness or any kind of disability because of the amount of times that they say celebutard.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Like
that was their favorite word.
So as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, okay. So they're just leaning into the ableist shit then. Okay. Yeah. Now we know.
It's because
this
movie didn't come out. This movie didn't come out in 1986. This movie came out in 2019.
Right.
This stuff wasn't acceptable. Like, we've talked about movies where you go back to the 80s and even back in the 70s and you start seeing stuff that you're like, yeah, this isn't okay anymore. Like, you don't see this in a movie. And this,
we've even watched some stuff from the early 2000s that we were like, ugh. Yeah. I can't believe we all thought that was okay.
Go watch Ace Ventura: Pet Detective again, and you get to the end of that, and you're like, oh no, because it's like
I like what they say on Brooklyn Nine-Nine about that show. He's like, it's a great movie, and it only gets overtly transphobic right at the very end.
Or like I tried to rewatch American Pie because I used to love that movie, and I was like, oh shit, this is super rapey. No, oh no. Why did I love this so much at 15?
Because of all the pop punk.
Like, well, it's the same thing. Like, you go back to National Lampoon's what is it? What's the college one with Belushi?
Yeah. Animal House.
The one Animal House. That movie, is that the one where they basically get the girl to fuck the guy, the nerdy guy, or is that maybe that's the Revenge of the Nerds? Revenge of the Nerds, I think, where they get a girl to fuck a guy by putting a mask on, so she thinks it's her boyfriend.
Yeah, and
you're like, oh, no. Yeah, so that's something that you go, especially comedies. You're like, that stuff can be like where they're making jokes about it, and you're like, yeah, that doesn't work very well.
Right.
It doesn't work very well. It doesn't hold up very well. I just want to go because Fred Durst had done other things besides this movie. If you go look at his IMDb thing, and I don't know if this was his first writing credit because he had directed before this, and that's what you started going, well, is this because he was writing this that it that shit got out of control, right? Where you think you're all like you're edgy or something like that, and you're like, no, you didn't.
Right.
Yeah, so his
not
writing,
edgy, you just sound like a dinosaur.
Yeah. His writing credits are all like Limp Bizkit things, and then in a puddle of mud video or something like that. So this is the first time he's directed a whole bunch of shit.
He directed
The
Education of Charlie Banks. That's an actual
good movie. I do remember seeing that he had directed that and being like, what? Because if I remember correctly, I loved that movie.
You get good actors. Like Jesse Eisenberg is actually a really good actor though. So
right.
But John Travolta has like levels of being good. It just depends on the year, I guess.
Yeah, how much money he needs at that time.
Maybe it also depends on the
tragic
director.
life too. So I don't know. Maybe he's just like.
Well, I think we're selling Fred Durst short because on his IMDb page, one of his credits is also the Fred Durst sex tape.
I don't ever want to see this. I don't ever want to see this.
Which means that he released it, officially.
Apparently himself.
And credited.
Right.
IMDb.
He was proud of that shit.
So I wonder,
there was production.
How
put
much?
into it then.
How close is Fred Durst to Zack Snyder? Is my next question, because it seems like a very similar thing. He gets a script that he, is handed to him, and he can go and make something like that. But then someone allows him to write a movie, and things go very, very badly, very, very fast.
Right.
It's yeah. I grew up liking Fred Durst as a kid because I'm I was a teenager in that time frame where those things were big, and
right.
But man, he seemed to go, no, Fred Durst, no. We talked about it earlier. So the Fred Durst scene where the Hunter gets in the car and is jamming out with his son. It's just you have your name all over this movie. Everyone is going to realize that is your band, Fred Durst.
Right.
This is you can't do this. You can't do this.
Really trying to bring Limp Bizkit back.
Well, and it seemed because the song that they were listening to, I had never heard before, and so I'm guessing it's a new Limp Bizkit song, and it's don't put that in there. Put one that people know.
Yeah,
he couldn't get the rights to it. It was too expensive. He probably doesn't even own the rights to the good songs.
Right.
It's all one of the big labels that the people. Oh my god, yeah, that is Josh. That was a good line, man. I think we talked about maybe finally one more thing about the end of the movie that just I would go, what the fuck is happening? So after he ties Hunter up at the very end,
somehow,
he comes out. He acts like he shot himself in the head or something like that and scares the shit out of this dude. But then he walks out of the room and comes back in a Michael Myers jumper with a Jason Voorhees mask. And I'm like, what is this outfit you got going there, Moose? I don't quite understand it. Which also, there's another scene maybe you guys have some opinion about. And while that's all happening at the very end, for some reason they flash back to Moose as a child, because it's him as a child because it goes black and white, I guess, is how we equate that it's him as a child watching Night of the Living Dead. What was the point of that? It was his parents yelled at each other, so we should feel bad for Moose.
I think that was to showcase that his coping mechanism for that was movies, and that's why he is obsessed with Hollywood and actors, and his coping mechanism was his movies.
Escaped so that's reality.
So he got
show
obsessed.
That at the beginning.
Yeah, he got obsessed with. Yeah, it wasn't placed well, but I got that from that. I was like, that. This is where the obsession stemmed from, was his coping mechanism to escape from his bad surroundings or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the whole ending is bizarre. He gets into Hunter's house again, ties him up without waking him up somehow, and then
again,
Hunter is trying to negotiate his way out of this, and one of the ways he said is I've got a TV in there. It's HD. It's it's 2019, buddy. Everybody's got an HD TV. But he also tells him at one point, he goes, "Hey, man, you're out of line."
Right.
He's tied you up and is about to murder you. He's crossed out of line a long time ago.
Well, he fucking nuked it, remember? According to Lear.
Right. Well, and then he successfully, was it that he got him to untie one of his hands, or he got one of his hands free or whatever, but instead of waiting until he was fully free of his binding, he just goes ahead and tries to attack him. So
he headbutts him in the face. So
when he doesn't succeed in knocking him down and keeping him down, he's still kind of tied up. And you're like, well, yeah, man, like, try to get yourself out first so that you can be free and then shoot at him and run away.
Well, he convinces Moose that he's going to be his best friend and he's going to sign anything he wants. And by the way, the jacket that he keeps getting him to sign couldn't have cost more than $8.37 to put together. He has this leather vest that says Rico. It's bedazzled to say Rico on the back of it. That looks like they
hit up the Walmart right before the movie started. They're like, okay, they got it.
No, it looked like they had shot a gay porno in like the very exact like room they were in while they were filming the room or something. I don't even understand it.
Yeah, there's a matching set of assless chaps that go with that.
There's no way. It's like with Rico bedazzled on the back of it. I'm like, what is this? And you're sitting there and going, he's trying to get him to sign it the whole movie, and you're like, okay, but yeah, he gets him to like, he's like, I'll sign anything you want, all this stuff. And he's like, he gets him to like imagine them being best friends, which is weird because like one of the only shots in the whole movie that's kind of cool is when they're waiting in, I mean, it's one of the better shots in the movie. He's waiting in line to meet this hunter guy at the bookstore and he keeps imagining him like by himself.
And they change
like,
the lighting.
Only talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well done.
And so he keeps going back to something like this and like imagining those two together. And he finally lets his hands go and he headbutts him. And then for some reason, there's a fucking rifle sitting somewhere next to his. He was pulls sitting a rifle out of nowhere. Yeah. And this is where it sits there and go, you are trying to throw sympathy for this character. And this happens. He shoots all the fingers of one of his hands off.
Mm-hmm.
Pulls a Rambo machete out of where the fuck did that come from? And starts cutting the rest of these ropes because he's like incapacitated, the dude. He proceeds to like kick Moose down the stairs.
That was vicious.
Yeah. It's not like you were fucked up if you're rolling down the stairs like this.
Right.
And then he fucking kicks him some more and then just goes like all like, oh, no big deal. He like blows both of his eardrums out by shooting next to him, but like next to his ears. And then just goes, okay, I'm going to stab you in the eyeball. It takes one of his eyes out. You're like,
yeah, that was intense.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's where I thought it was trying to take like the more artistic route and turn into like a movie like Drive now or something for no reason whatsoever, going like the ultra violent route. So like this is the only I'm just trying to like understand his choice here because like it doesn't make you like any characters, but that's again, like the lines of like his thought process of it, nothing coming together actually, but like those lines of like ideas were decent. I think if this had something else tied to it and the ultra violence, like you can just tell that Fred Durst likes movies that have ultra violence in it, so he put it in his movie. Like this is just him and all the stuff that he likes, and it's just, oh, this is my movie. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna do that. This is literally, and for no reason whatsoever, and that's all I can come down to at the end. He liked it, so he put it in, and there was no rhyme or reason. Have fun.
Well, and the climax of it makes no sense to me. Like what happens after the fight? So the police come and arrest Hunter for murdering the maid, but he didn't. But like,
and he wasn't there for it.
Yeah, but after the credits, like they gotta come to a, like 30 seconds after the credits, he's free to go. Like, there's no way. Like, we're not.
Yeah, there's no way those charges stay.
Right, that's exactly what we're saying.
As a fucking audience member with
there's
that
blood
ending.
all over his house.
Right.
Yeah.
There's ample evidence that he was like tied up and held against his will, which is
his wrists are probably rope burned. He knows the guy's name that did it. His son saw the guy at some point. Like, how is this?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Okay,
that
what-
really
what-
bothered me.
He lets this is fucking psychotic too. He just lets Moose out of the house after he goes because and then how long does he sit there covered in blood because like Moose's eyeball when he got stabbed sprayed blood all over his shirt.
Right.
And you're like,
Or just grape
how long
juice.
did you sit? Yeah. How long did you sit in this shirt and then wait for the cops to show up? Well, I mean, there's a bloated maid in your backyard that nobody noticed for 3 weeks, like we talked about. And
Right.
and Moose just wanders down the street, gets away with everything, and you're supposed to like, but that would have lasted like 2 seconds because they would have investigated it and Moose would have been arrested.
Right. Exactly. And I feel like you're supposed to be like, oh, good, because Hunter was a dick and Moose gets away with it because he didn't know what he's doing. And it's like, no, he absolutely should still be held responsible for like tying a man up, terrifying him, stalking him, killing this woman, even if he didn't mean to do it. And Hunter's a dick, but also doesn't mean that he deserves to be stalked or have his kid terrified or any of that shit.
Yeah.
I think it was a big
like
fuck you to Hollywood, and I don't know. I felt like Fred Durst was giving someone the finger, but I think it was unintentionally up his own ass, and he thought he was giving it to the audience, and like that's it.
Right.
Like the fingers that Leah and Moose keep giving them like each other. Like
right.
The scene where Leah like cranks up her middle finger and Moose is like thinks it's like a little kid who saw like a magic trick for the first time or something like that. You're just like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like the actual directing of the movie isn't the problem. I mean, it's not perfect. It's weird with like, and that a lot of that has to do with the editing and with like the voiceover is probably the worst directing part of it. This movie's biggest problem is the script and the John Travolta. John Travolta's acting is so bad. It's hard to describe out loud. And like, I feel like in 20 years, 30 years, when John Travolta's not around anymore, people are going to go back to this and go, what happened here?
Right.
Well, yeah, and if there's people listening that haven't watched it or don't plan to watch it, like at least go on YouTube and look up some clips of his, especially like the Freddy Krueger
right
shouting match that he gets into.
I think I have some of it in here. He goes, I want to chop off your head, and it would roll out into the street, and a truck would squish it, and blood would go everywhere, and you're like, what is this fucking rambling sentence that's supposed to be like lined up with everything? And you're like,
I actually laughed out like when that part happened. I just started laughing hysterically. I was like, what? What is happening here?
Especially because like they had sold this scene as because he goes crazy on this Todd guy who was like the drug addict stealing dude. If you had shown off this character, like he picked him up by the neck, this motherfucker was tweaked out on meth or something. He would have stabbed Moose to death at that exact point in this movie from everything you had done. And I think that the only point of that scene was to show violence. Like,
yeah. I think John Travolta thought that was going to be the scene, like when he inevitably got nominated for an Oscar, and they play a little clip of the movie as they read his name off. That's the scene that he was going to pick for that.
Oh
yeah, well, and like I do have to put some of the blame of John Travolta's performance on the director because part of the director's job is helping your actors give a good performance and the best performance. And I feel like just Fred Durst was like, he's John Travolta. Everything he's doing is gold, right? Like, this is amazing. He was in Look Who's Talking Now. Like,
there was a definite thing where he should have been Fred Durst just either let him do whatever he wanted or John Travolta wouldn't listen. And I don't know which one it was, but like,
or if it was both, but
I kind of assume it was more of the John Travolta wasn't like did what he was doing and nobody told him how bad it was. And You know, Nicolas Cage gets made fun of for his crazy performances all the time. The bees, everything.
I was gonna say, I feel like John Travolta is just trying to be like Nicolas Cage now, like because Nicolas Cage made that transition where he can just like gear his, I don't know who he is and whatever at like a freaking car and you just accept him in any range of movie. He's in a big budget movie. Yeah, he's Nicolas Cage. He's in a shitty, low budget movie, but it's got Nicolas Cage in it. Yeah, he's Nicolas Cage. Right. Like you just accept it because he's crazy Nicolas. But he has I don't know. He's made some really, really good shitty movies and really, really bad good movies. So and everything in between.
It's like the community. One of my favorite Community episodes when it breaks Abed trying to figure out, is Nicolas Cage brilliant or is he terrible?
He's just in everything, so he something will stick. So,
law of averages, right?
Did you guys see the picture after the whole bullshit that was at the Capitol last week? And they put Nicolas Cage in the background in one of the pictures, like he was stealing the Declaration of Independence.
I did not see that picture, but I did see a thing that was like, I no longer have like I no longer think it's really cool for Nicolas Cage to have stolen the Declaration of Independence because apparently that's fucking easy to do.
It's way easier than they sold it in National Treasure, that's for sure.
Made it out to be like some badass thing.
Yeah, I like him. If you've seen Mandy and you've seen
Mandy's so good, man. So
Color Out of Space. Those two movies make me happy, even though they're both really, really weird. But if you guys haven't seen Mandy,
it's like a piece of art moving and becoming new pieces of art. It's insane. Yeah, it's insane.
I actually haven't seen those yet, but I watched it and like it looks really neat.
Oh, you're just gonna hate it, but it's so good.
It's actually it's just both those movies are very cool shot movies too. So it's like very differently shot and very artistic.
That's one shot though where she's given the drug and those like her face and the dude's face slowly start to become one. I'm like, what?
It's trippy as shit.
No, what do you like this is so weird. But it's just like
there's a lot of Nicolas Cage's craziness is just perfect for it. So I watched Nicolas Cage the other day do his like that, you know, those YouTube videos where it's like they talk about their most iconic roles, and that dude is just weird every time I hear interviews with him. So it's well, guys, it is do you have any of your crazy information that you tracked down, Sadie, about this movie before we wrap everything up? Because I know you track down lots of cool facts and you have your holes that you find. And
I do usually.
You know, Devon Sawa was an obsessed fan in that Eminem music video, so that's kind of funny.
Right.
How now he was. It's the full circle thing.
Yeah. I think in the rabbit hole that we did on this lost episode, the best bit of trivia I had was just of the saga of when my sister and I met Devon Sawa.
That's funny.
I lost my notes from when we watched that movie, so I don't have any of my other trivia tidbits. I should have gone and looked up more.
It's not a big deal. I was throwing out there if there's anything that, like, you know, stood in your mind when you were like you guys reviewed it, because I know how. Did you guys find a good review of this movie? Also, is there a good review somewhere?
Yeah, we always, somebody always loves it.
There's always someone.
It's not necessarily like a respected critic. Sometimes it's just some dude on Amazon, but
that many times I have been convinced is either family of someone in the movie or like one of the ones we read for Blood Rain that I'm convinced was Uwe Boll, like himself. Like
You always have to be careful, man. I like one of the last things I did before the country shut down last year. I went and saw a AEW wrestling show, and they had like these dark matches that you don't see on TV. And one of these local wrestlers came out, and she's like real like a Marilyn Manson type like character, right? Mm-hmm. And like you're like, what is like you're like trying to yell stuff at him, just to encourage him because it's wrestling. But then I realized very quickly that the lady sitting in the row in front of us was actually this wrestler's aunt.
Oh no!
And so I didn't say anything bad or like crazy. But you're like, you're like,
yeah, it's a little more into close the to wrestling.
Home. Yeah, you're like,
that's my nightmare. That's like,
what's it?
That's my fear. Like if we're in traffic and someone cuts us off and like Matt goes to flip him off or something, I'm like, we're gonna end up next to them in line at Kroger or something. We don't know.
That stuff it horrifies me. It horrifies me.
Like yes.
It's because usually it's those people that road rage it like that you're just like, oh no, they're gonna follow me.
Exactly, right. We did scare the tar out of a woman we did not realize was in our neighborhood because she like cut us off and Matt honked at her, and then I guarantee she thought we were following her. She kept like turning and looking behind and turning and looking behind, and then she like pulls it and like she see her like stop and she's just staring at us as we drive past. I was like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. She lives like 2 houses down from us. I was like, oh my god.
Know your neighbors before you road rage.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why you go like whenever like you ever have someone like you cut them off or you have to cut them off or flick them off because they piss you off, and then you're like they're behind you for a really long time. You're like, right. That's what that happened to that lady. They're like, oh, it's going to be like a French horror movie where they follow me down and murder me in my garage and no one ever find. It's like the maid from the Fanatic. They just never find the body.
Exactly. Yeah. In the middle of someone's lawn for 3 weeks.
Yeah. We can't tell it's a corpse anymore, but it was a corpse. So. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that someone gets to hear you guys' opinions about this movie because I said it to you guys on Twitter earlier. I'm like, it's like a car crash.
Right.
That it's really hard to look away from. It's beautiful and ugly and horrible and
it's the perfect
entertaining.
It's the perfect length for this though. Like any longer and then it's just like, oh, come on, man. Like
yeah. They don't have drawn out sky shot sequences or anything like that. This movie is besides whatever they were doing with their like the voiceovers and stuff, the editing is pretty crisp and they don't leave any. I don't know where Moose's backstory is. Maybe that's on the Blu-ray. You get a Moose the childhood years on the Blu-ray. So
yeah. No, I'm glad we were able to put our knowledge of this movie, of having seen this movie, to use. Because
originally when we had done it, the day that I sat down to start editing it was the day that John Travolta's wife died.
Right.
And I was like, we can't put this out now.
Right. We felt really bad. We were like, we made a statement and everything. We're like, we're not going to release this on the day that Kelly Preston died. Like, that just seems like, I know John Travolta's not going to listen to this, but that just seems cruel.
Yeah. Just like it's like you're targeting in a minute.
Exactly. It just felt very mean. So we were like, we're not going to do this. And we went to do it like 3 or 4 weeks later. And that's when Matt discovered the audio was just completely screwed up.
Yeah.
So we never aired it anyway.
It's weird how much I can sit through this movie. I like because it's so bad, but like and so good at the same like it's. But I'm glad you guys like had it like because your opinions on this shit always makes me laugh. So it's good to see. Now you guys, and I know you went on with Andy and Brian and talked about it's garbage day. So now you're making the rounds with all the
carpet stain.
Hey, I didn't miss garbage
that he had said carpet
I
stain.
thought he said carpet stain, and I was so mad that you did not mention that to me. I was like, I'm sorry. I feel like that would have been the first thing you'd mention to me, is that he just randomly yells carpet stain at people. It was highly upsetting to me.
So we watched Silent Night for like Christmas time, and I'd never seen it either, and I'm like, both those movies are something special. I like the first one a lot though. But,
yeah, we've heard the first one is much better. We saw it when we watched the second one. We saw it in the first half of the second one.
Yeah, you can watch the second one and you actually get the entire.
You're all caught up
inside. Yeah. So, guys, thank you again. It was. I laughed my ass off, so I had to get on with everything. Do you want to tell everybody where they could find your podcast and everything about it?
Sure. Yeah, we're on Twitter at So Horrified. There's links to all of our platforms that we're on there. We've got our link tree up in our bio, so you can find us on Spotify, Apple, all those places.
And you guys are in some contest right now for that you're in a couple ranks in voting for podcasts, which seems like it's going pretty well for you. So that's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's exciting. With the bracketeers, they do this like every month or 2 months or so. They'll do this with some independent podcasts and pit us all against each other.
Yeah, it's I've been voting for you. I retweeted it out for you guys today, so it's good seeing you guys get some votes and kick some ass.
That should have been our first question: is did you vote for us? And if not, we're hanging up this call.
No, I voted for you. I swear.
We
might have done it on multiple Twitter accounts too. But that's besides the point. So, okay, cool. Yeah, so go check them guys out if you guys like content and funny content. And you like talking about horror movies, especially the B horror movies that are just fun to sit in there and kind of give bullshit to. Their podcast is a lot of fun. So, for us, murdermoose.com has everything. Episodes are up there. Josh is always redesigning it and doing magical things with it like he does.
Maybe I'll update it this week.
Maybe.
If I can.
I'm on Twitter at Rod_Johnston. He's on Twitter at JoshWRB.
Yeah.
And when's your website launching for all the content for?
I have no clue. The bucket of
okay.
the bucket of worms keeps getting more buckety of wormy. I have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. No, it's taking longer than I thought.
Okay. Well, it was awesome to have you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for coming in. It's later for you guys than it is for us. So appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And you guys ever need someone else to come and bullshit with you guys about some horrible movie? Either one of us would. Josh might be harder,
but not both.
I'm always,
is that what you're saying?
No, both. You just have to declare it with Josh. That's all you have to do here. So I'm always willing.
Hey,
I may come on
I'm always willing. For sure.
I know. Able is the problem.
Right.
I may come on in an inflatable T-Rex costume if we're doing shit crazy like that. So here we are. So, yeah. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for wasting your time with us tonight, friends. And we will catch... I guess we're going to do... Josh, we're doing that other movie you wanted to do, the Jackson, whatever it is on Shudder.
All for Jackson.
All for Jackson. So that will be our next movie next week. So, yeah, if you guys don't, we pick our movies at the end of our podcast because we're ADHD to an extreme and on the cuff of everything. So, yeah. So, okay. Well, thanks for coming again. Thanks for listening, everybody. Give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And I think that's about all. So, thanks for your time. Thanks for being around, and thanks for being awesome. So, we'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.